This video is going to be focused on simple sketch relations. In order to do this, I have added an old assignment here that the objective is to define using as many sketch relations as possible and removing as many dimensions as possible in order to get our drawing to fully defined. Sketch relations are particularly powerful when you are looking to do something like this, which allows you to edit your part and edit the minimal dimensions and have as much update as possible. Not everything is going to show up in this. We will have a couple of extra ones that will be added that aren't part of this physical drawing, as well as a couple that we'll have to address because they're a little bit more complicated in a later video. With this, first thing we're going to do is make it so we can see our sketch relations. So within this command, there are two main things to keep track of. The first is up here we have our view settings. So this shows everything that we want to and can see within our sketches. Oops. And the second piece is down here we have the little symbol with the 90-degree angle. That is our view sketch relations command. What that is going to do is make it so that we are able to see these sketch dimensions. And when I click on it, we're going to see that a lot of these sketch dimensions have already been auto-populated. All these little green squares are our sketch relations. So let's start with the very basic ones, the horizontal and vertical. As I draw a line, you'll see that I can actually snap to horizontal, and it will add a horizontal sketch relation automatically to it for me. This little piece here. With that, it's also showing in the existing relations on the left, and it's horizontal. I can actually use this to change something that's already drawn by adding a relation and setting it to horizontal. The first one here, I think I had a couple things selected instead of just one. But I can set these lines and they will snap to horizontal when I set there. And more powerfully, I can actually select 2 points and say that they are horizontal in comparison to each other, locking this large circle so that it is horizontal along that horizontal plane from the origin point. Next thing we're going to talk about that's auto-populated very commonly are the coincident pieces. So when I draw a line, if I start or end on a line or other point, you will see this coincident symbol right here. What this is going to do for us is this is going to tell us that this point is along this line. So when I select not both of the lines, the point and the line, it's actually showing as coincidence. Just like the horizontal, I can hold Control and select a point and a line afterwards and add the coincident to it so that those things connect. Perfect. Next piece I want to talk about is tangency. So you're familiar with the term, and tangency is another one that can automatically happen. So I've drawn a little circle here, and I'm going to draw a line off that circle, and you see there's these little yellow lines that are showing where it's perpendicular to the circle and tangent to the circle. I can actually snap it to tangency, and it's going to automatically create this tangent sketch relation right here. And what that does is it will hold this drawing such that the line stays tangent to the circle. If I didn't mean for that to happen, I can actually go in so I can see it. I can either click on the line, the circle, or on the piece itself and click and delete it, and now I can move it freely. Just like before, I'm going to go ahead and add the tangent sketch relation to a bunch of pieces in this model. I'll actually speed up a little bit so that we can skip through that. A little bit far. Next thing we're going to talk about is concentric. So what I've done here is I've drawn an extra circle. I don't have a good example of concentric otherwise in this model, but what you can see here is I have 2 circles and I've selected both of them, and I hit this concentric button and it adds a sketch relation for me We've got the little green speck over here. We've got the existing relation added of concentric, and they share the same center point now. Not only do circles have center points, but curves have center points. We can also make a curve and a circle, or two curves concentric, and it'll do the same thing. In this case, I created most of a smiley face. Okay. Next thing to talk about. This one is one that's not normally automatically generated, but I can select two lines and I can add the equal sketch relation. Well, let's see if I can't circle the right one here. I have an equal sketch relation, meaning that the two pieces, and you notice that it is labeled, so the label is the same on both of these. The two sketch relation, the two pieces are equal. So equal is saying that they're equal length if it's lines, and it's going to say that they are equal radiuses if it is curves. So I can set different things equal in order to keep consistency throughout my piece, instead of just saying that all the different lines are horizontal or vertical from each other. I meant to select equal here. Ended up setting them vertical to each other, I believe, but you can see there what happens when you say something is both horizontal and vertical. It doesn't like it. It's overdefined. It can't be both. Now just showing a little bit of power of this equal. I've got all of these lines here, and what I want them all to be is parallel pieces, so I'm going to set all of them to be equal. And I've created a bunch of lines. If I pull through them, they're all going to maintain the same length. Because they're coincident on both ends, that also means they're parallel, which is what we're going to talk about next. I'm actually going through and deleting all of these equals, because it probably makes a little bit more sense to just say that everything here is parallel. Parallel is our next sketch relation here, and I am mass applying it, selected everything, but we're seeing the two parallel lines right here. And with this sketch relation, we're just saying that these two things need to stay parallel. And as you can see, they're all labeled, they're all staying the same. Yeah, with that, next piece I want to talk about is colinear, which is what I'm adding right here. Basically, two lines that are falling on the same line can be said to be colinear. We have added that sketch relation right up here. And you see that there's this little line right here that I'm writing a little bit to the right of, showing what is colinear and showing that they're along the same line. We'll show that how this can be automatically populated a little bit later in the video. But basically, it would be the same as saying those two are vertical from each other. If I set these equal, now what you're seeing is, because all of this is set up this way, all of a sudden I have fully defined everything going on to the very left of this shaft, because I have two equal lines coming out. So this line right here and the line below it are, these two have to be equal. And in order to be equal length, if the pieces right past them are along the same line, the only way for that to work with this curve here is if they're at the same point in the curve. Otherwise, they're not going to end up being colinear. So all of a sudden, without adding any new dimensions, I have fully defined a portion of this sketch. And a lot of these things you really didn't need dimensions for, because with your eye, you can see that's how it should be. But you need to actually be able to tell SolidWorks that that's what you intend for it. Next thing I'm doing here, and I'm going to fast forward a little bit through this, but basically I want all of these lines to be equally spaced such that the top of one is the bottom of the next. And I'm adding a bunch of verticals in there in order to make that happen. And with this, the only thing that's left is I can add a dimension for how tall this is. And you see that immediately all of these pieces have flipped to black. I have fully defined almost everything here. I'm missing one piece here, and that is the fact that this line, if I grab it, trying to figure out what's underdefined with it, is, oh, sorry, I'm first making all of those equal, but if I grab this line, there we go, and move it back and forth, I don't know the length here, so I'm just missing another colinear. And now that whole handle aspect has been completed. Moving to the next portion here, I'm just continuing with some that we already know. I'm adding a tangency so that these lines go to horizontal at the end. They can still move back and forth, so I'm going to have to add a dimension here. Any second, there we go. I've added the dimension there, and then I'm actually going to set them as equal. I'm saying that I just defined the radius of this top, the radius of this top one with this 1 inch dimension, and now I've added this equal sign here, showing that both this and the one below have the same radius, because we talked about how curves, when we use the equal, is defining the radius. And I've fully defined there. Noting that it ends not at that entire line, that horizontal line is not fully defined. You see that it's going in and out, up and down, but we know exactly where it starts and we know exactly the direction because we said it's vertical. So everything but the point at the end of that line is fully defined. So that's the point at the end of the line is the only thing that is still blue. Okay, just adding a couple extra pieces that I know about this piece now in order to move it towards fully defined. And you see that it's not necessarily the best idea to draw everything first and add all the dimensions and sketch relations later, because things are getting a little bit crazy here. I'm actually going to make a mistake in a second. As I move around, I'm trying to get this line set up so it's about the right place, and right there I made the mistake. You'll notice that this line right here, I'm writing right on top of it, and this curve right here, the end of the curve and the line, I accidentally connected them. I added a sketch relation saying they were the same point. By moving them to each other, it just snapped to the point, and I'll have to address that a little bit later in the video. So not necessarily the best plan to do all of this all at once. As you're seeing, I'm getting a little bit frustrated here with what happened. Wishing that I had just drawn as I went. Next thing we're seeing here is I have, as you can see at this point, already added an equal dimension. Oops, writing over it a little bit there, to this top and this bottom curve. However, this bottom curve can still move. Remembering the equal dimension for a line says that the line has equal length. For a curve, it is saying it has equal radius. So what I actually need to do here is I'm adding this piece, that is, they have equal curve lengths as well as equal radius, so that will snap it to fully defined, and I have locked in another big part of this crossguard, I guess, at this point. Messing with the circle, I'm not quite happy where it was. I didn't necessarily follow a set pattern here, but getting everything moving towards fully defined here. And I'm actually going to skip forward a little bit to the point where we get to some new sketch relations, trying to keep this video on the shorter side. You see that I had to delete that extra line I was talking about, adding a couple extra dimensions here, messing with that circle so it looks pretty for my little sword, adding a couple dimensions, deciding how I want to do this, and here we go. Okay, moving forward, I am adding a couple of dimensions here. One thing that happened during this skip, I'll pause and show you, is you'll notice that I have this horizontal piece here. I added this showing that the very tip of this sword is centered. It is horizontal with the origin point, so it is in the center. But now we're going to talk about a couple of sketch relations that can really only be made automatically. You're not going to see, you're very rarely, if even possible, going to see them made by adding afterwards. The first one, we're going to go ahead and use a mirror command, and we create a mirror image of this sword. And unfortunately, zooming in does not actually make the sketch relations any bigger. They try to stay small enough that they're out of the way. But I have added that little piece, which is the square with the line through it. That is my symmetric sketch relation, by saying that I have created this line symmetric to the other one, meaning that I don't need any dimensions on that top half that I just flipped. It is already fully defined. Next piece I have is my offset. So I'm going to take all of these lines and add an offset to them, adding a little bit of texture to this sword, or a hole in the middle, depending on how you interpret it. And you'll notice that once again, I have created a sketch relation saying that these two lines are offset from each other. So that is fully defined, showing how everything is related there, even without a bunch of extra pieces. Just trimming this to make it nice. And at this point, I have finished my little sword exercise. Not very practical, but a nice little picture nonetheless. So with this, go ahead and showing that, honestly, at this point, I have created this fully defined sketch. If you look over on the right side, we look for the sketch mark here, and we see that there's no little minus, like so, in it. So it is fully defined. Yahoo! And not too many dimensions. It look a little bit messy because I added them afterwards. Definitely would clean this up if it was something I was actually going to be using. But I have created this entire piece with very minimal actual dimensions. Now, before I quit, I do have a couple of extra sketch dimensions, sketch relationships that I still need to discuss. So we're going to draw a couple of them in. The first one is one we've already discussed, colinear. I said that this can actually happen automatically, and how it happens automatically is with the trim function. So if I go through and trim this, I have added that colinear sketch relation to this line without actually physically selecting it to add. Other very common ones that we have not discussed. First one that we're going to talk about, if I select the two lines, I have the opportunity to set them as perpendicular. So we have the little perpendicular symbol right there. Works just like our parallel sketch dimension, but it is perpendicular. If I move it, it's going to stay perpendicular. Let me delete this quick. And the next piece I want to talk about is, I currently have coincident, but if I select the two, I can go a little bit further and I can actually attach this to the midpoint of a line. So this is always going to be in the middle, of my line here. So no matter how I drag it around, which I think I'm going to do in a second, it stays attached to the middle. See, I'm moving the point and it doesn't move along the line. It actually has to shrink the line. Oops, that's the coincident one. The midpoint one's above it. I just had my mouse on it before. Perfect. Last piece is merge. That's just setting the 2 points as equal. It's in the sketch relationship area for where you add it, but it's not going to actually show because 2 points being the same doesn't make a lot of sense. And that is our sketch relation video. There are some more that are worth talking about, but this video has gone on long enough. Hopefully that was helpful.